The night was quiet, too quiet for a city known for its noise. In the heart of Mekong district, where streetlights flickered like tired eyes and buildings leaned like worn-out elders, a girl named Emma stood on the balcony of her mother's cramped apartment, staring down at a street that had forgotten how to care. For years, Emma had watched injustice grow roots in her community. People whispered about corruption, poverty, and abuse, but nothing ever changed. The silence had become normal, comfortable even. People heard the screams of the oppressed, but they buried them under excuses. But Emma was different. She felt things deeply. She noticed the things others pretended not to see, like the way Mrs. Bessie, the old fruit seller, returned home with half her wares gone, not because she sold them, but because thugs demanded street tax, or how the police checkpoints magically appeared only in poor neighborhoods, stopping people who already had nothing, or how children like her brother, Dell, attended schools with broken windows, no books, and teachers who hadn't been paid for months. The city was broken. It was betrayed. The night everything changed one evening, Amma was walking home from the shop when she heard raised voices. At first, she wanted to ignore it. Everyone ignored things here, that was how they survived. But then she heard a sound that tightened her chest. A boy crying. She followed the sound to a narrow alley where a teenage boy was cornered by two uniformed men. The boy, no older than 15, kept saying, "I didn't steal anything, sir. I'm just coming from work." Amma froze. She knew this boy, Glitchy, a gentle kid who repaired phones. He barely even spoke above a whisper, yet here he was being accused of a crime that never happened. The officers didn't care. They slammed him against the wall, demanding payment to forget the mistake. It was extortion masked as law. Emma's hands trembled. She wanted to shout, but fear was a tight rope around her voice. She took a step back, but then she saw something that broke her. Kalachi looking at her silently, begging for someone in Iana to help. And she did what the entire city had done for years. She turned away. The guilt that followed Emma couldn't sleep that night. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw Kalachi's face. She felt the weight of her own silence crushing her chest. The next morning, she found out Kalachi had been taken into custody. The official story claimed he resisted arrest. People cited, people shrugged. "Not our business," they said. "Let his people handle it. That's life in Mekong district." But Emma couldn't breathe in that silence anymore. She made a decision that scared her more than the officers did. She would speak. Not with a whisper. Not with a complaint. But with a scream loud enough to wake the entire city. The voice that broke the city awake. Emma borrowed her mother's old phone and created a short video. Her voice shook, but her message danked. "Yesterday, I watched a boy get arrested for a crime he didn't commit. I kept quiet. We all keep quiet. But silence is killing us more than injustice. If we don't speak, this will become our children's inheritance. I refuse to be silent again." She posted it online and went to school, expecting nothing. But by noon, the video had 2,000 views. By evening, it reached 50,000. By midnight, it hit 1 million. People began sharing their own stories. Things. Kalachi was released. When Emma saw him step out of the station, he hugged her. "You saved me," he whispered. She swallowed hard. "I also failed you at first." "No," he said. "You." They had been too afraid to say. The silence was cracking. Hashtags began to trend. Protesters gathered. News outlets came. The city officials panicked under the sudden spotlight. Within 48 hours, helped me when it mattered. The movement that was born a week later. Ami stood before a crowd of thousands, students, traders, parents, workers, people who had finally realized their silence was worse than their fear. She didn't feel like a hero. She felt like someone who simply reached her limit. "We are not powerless," she told them. "We were only quiet. And now we're done being quiet." Thunderous applause rose like a wave rolling through the city. The movement spread beyond Mekong district. It became national, then international. Omo had no idea her trembling 30-second clip would spark a revolution. But that's how injustice ends. Not always with violence. Not always with politicians. Sometimes with one girl who refuses to let silence win. That final message years later, when Emma was invited to speak at a global conference, she started with the words that began everything: silence is not peace. Silence is permission. Speak because someone's life may depend on the sound of your voice. And from that day onward, the world remembered the girl who taught them that even the softest voice can become the loudest scream. If you'd like, I can also create. Like, share, and subscribe for more interesting stories.